Welcome to episode 3. We are talking about the living wage in Prince George. In a recent article that came out by the Canadian Centre for Policy and Alternatives, the living wage in Prince George is now $21.19 per hour. And who we have here to speak on that is none other than the CEO of Flagship Accounting, Crystal Livingstone. So welcome to the podcast, Crystal, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Colin.
Awesome. I hope that you can help us make some sense out of this because I ran some numbers before this. And so $21.14 an hour in Prince George. Now, they said in the article that that is the amount that you have to make, like a couple has to make per hour to be able to, live in Prince George. Mm-hmm. However, before we get into that, I always like random facts. And everybody loves my random facts. Come on.
I had a feeling you were skipping over it.
No, I'm not going to skip over the random facts because random facts are awesome. Now, do you feel, and, maybe I don't notice this because I'm the only guy on this podcast, do you see more twins around?
No,
these days? Definitely
not.
I know a couple of young twins. I think there's 2 or 3 at my kid's school.
Yeah, so you should be. Because according to a new study in the Journal of Human Reproduction, the twinning rate has increased by 1/3 since the 1980s. Wow. 9 to 12 twins per 1,000 deliveries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Currently, that adds up to 1.6 million twins born each year across the world, meaning 1 out of every 42 babies is a twin.
And just like you were saying a little while ago, you have quite a few twins on either side? Were you saying that?
No, not me. I don't have any.
We don't have. Oh, I thought somebody said that the other day. I can't remember now who said that. Maybe it was Sarah. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's Colin's random fact for the day. There are more twins coming into this world, and they are not blaming it, but in the understanding that the reason why there is more twins coming into the world these days is 2 things: assisted reproduction and childbearing later on, like 30s, 40s, because according to this, that twinning has been found to increase with a mother's age.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Hey?
That's very interesting.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I read that and I'm like, now I'm going to watch because of that thing in our brain that makes us see things. You're going to be seeing. You're going to be walking around seeing more twins now that I said that.
I had a girlfriend who they wanted a bigger family. They wanted 3 children. And when they got pregnant with their 3rd, they found out they had twins. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's like that people go for the 3rd and it's twins.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. Your whole life just drastically changed.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have no context. Like Bailey and I, we don't have any children, so we have no context in this. But my buddy who had twins, well, they had 1 and then they had twins. He said, once you get outnumbered, you're in real trouble as a parent.
That's how I felt. I have 2 arms. That's it. If I need to carry them out of the store, I can only grab 2.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into this. Let's first talk to Crystal a little bit. Now, Crystal, you are the CEO and I'm guessing the founder of Flagship Accounting.
I am, yes.
What ever got you into accounting?
interestingly enough, it's, I think, what, people say we put out there in the universe. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it wasn't going to be accounting. I did know that. So, then family and, my mom was a chartered accountant, well, still is a CPA, CA, and she needed some help and I needed some work. My husband and I at that time had a construction company that was new, and we had young children, of course, Jessica being one of them, and I needed to work. I don't do well working in a job, which is why I'm self-employed and have been my whole adult life, other than working for my mom.
Yeah.
And my passion in life was to help other people. So it just so happened that, someone would need this. Oh, I can do that. I can help you figure out that form. I can file your taxes for you. That's not a big deal. My mom needed help. I can help. And we did a lot of work, on reserves. So we did a lot of work with nonprofits, which really filled my passion cup. And I just discovered that this was the medium in which, this is the vehicle in which I help people. So when my mom retired, I went on my own and started a non-designated public accounting office, because I knew that there was a need for this type of a service in Prince George. There was this niche that wasn't being filled, and I knew, kind of like that old Field of Dreams, saying, if you build it, they will come. So I knew that if I built the company, that the clients would discover that this service exists, and thereby the market created itself, even though it was already there. And I didn't realize how much that was there until it, started doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling. So we're now, with a very large client base, a couple thousand clients with, 16 staff. So that's what got me into accounting. It was by accident, not on purpose.
Would you say that it found you?
Oh, it definitely found me. I was about 35, and I had always asked the question, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I was about 35, and I said, I think I'm doing it. I'm doing what I'm going to do when I grow up. I have a business that assists other people, individuals and business owners, and it fills my cup every day, because I get to help people by doing things that I've learned how to do, and they don't know how to do because they're good at other things. So it definitely found me.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I never thought about like when I think in my head about accounting, my brain goes, oh, could you imagine running numbers all day long? And I took a couple accounting classes, and I took some bookkeeping stuff, and my dad was a bookkeeper, entrepreneur person, and it melts my brain a little bit. Now, what sort of advice would you give somebody, because accounting is a very popular vocation to go into? What advice would you give somebody that's looking possibly to be an accountant?
That's a really difficult answer, because accounting is, for me, it's a very detail oriented, type of work. You have to have attention to detail, and you have to like that attention to detail, right? Because the details matter. It's somebody else's business, somebody else's personal income tax. It's everything, right? And so understanding that the details matter, not every day, and on most often, not many days, do we just spend our days, nose deep covered in paperwork with, a little abacus doing our work. We
That's a picture I have in my mind.
Yeah.
You're sitting there with an abacus, you know.
And that's just part of it. And, I guess like doing the numbers piece, 1 + 1 is always 2. It's never anything but, right? So that piece is just learning the numbers. Now, as far as, accounting, I really encourage people to really focus on the people, right? And the people that you're there to help, because, a good accountant, a good bookkeeper has a good bedside manner, and it really goes a long way in assisting the people that you're doing the work for. But there are so many different types of accounting that a person can go into. They can go into management accounting where they work for, large corporations like Canfor or Northern Health. They can go into, small business accounting, which is, bookkeepers and accountants do the similar work, but bookkeepers do the work that accountants need the reports for. So there are so many different varieties. Like a doctor can go into so many different areas. So can accountants, right? So,
Right.
It's really difficult to answer, but you do have to like paying attention to detail. Definitely.
Yeah. Would you say, like, both in business, because not only are you an accountant, but you are an entrepreneur, and like you said before, that you don't do well in a job. I don't do well in a job either. I have to be working for myself. Would you suggest to people, business and accounting, that you find a niche and not be a generalist, but find a niche? I read a very good book once called The Blue Ocean Theory, all about finding that blue ocean for yourself where you can work and you have a specific niche.
That is a great question. And I believe in something similar. And as I put on my business cards, live your purpose on purpose and success will follow. So find what it is that you love to do.
That.
And the success happens naturally. Changing our paradigms around what success looks like, and not how big is our house and how much gold can we have and how big is our car, how many toys do we have, but what does success look like to you as an individual, right? What is success to me? Success to me is loving what I do every day, helping people, and making a difference in someone's life. To me, that is successful. So if I'm living my purpose on purpose, I don't need outside stimulation to give me that satisfaction. So in a way, I did create a niche that way because of the passion that I have for helping people. And, it builds upon itself, but niche passion are very similar, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually never thought about it that way, because everybody's individual passion is different, and it does tie into that blue ocean, I guess, and that niche that you found. And you made a very, very good point about what success looks like to the individual, and I fully agree, and I actually talk about this quite often, is getting caught up in the rat race, looking at your neighbor or your friend and comparing yourself and your toys and stuff like that to them. Comparison is a thief of joy. And, finding what your passion is and finding out what success means to you, I think in entrepreneurship and job satisfaction and all that, it's imperative. It's imperative that you define that, what success means to you, so you don't get caught up in having to buy a bigger house, like you said, or more toys or things like that. And before you know, I'm coming to you to straighten out the mess that I've got myself into because I've been spending too much money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity or even thought about, like moving out of Prince George, but I know a lot of successful people that are more successful because they stayed here and built their business here. How has Prince George affected your business?
Well, Prince George has a large percentage of small business owners. So I wouldn't leave Prince George. And someone who I looked up to in business once said to me, don't worry about leaving Prince George because you don't like the weather or you want more access to this or that. Just focus on growing your business and making the money that you need to go travel, right? But my family is here, and I love the small community feel. Prince George is, one of my staff members says this to me all the time. She lives in Calgary, works remotely. Prince George is the smallest city she's ever lived in. And everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. So it's a huge community feel. I had a client once tell me who came from New York. She chose Prince George because it reminds her of New York. She says it's like a miniature New York. People are friendly. They talk to you in line, and it's a real great community feel here. How has that affected my business? I have businesses that I help, all the way up to in Whitehorse down to Vancouver Island, out into Saskatchewan, that we work with, and I also have personal tax clients in England, Australia, Dubai, Sweden. So their personal tax clients can really come from anywhere. With the real worldwide acceptance of virtual working, it has changed how businesses do business. So Prince George is very, very supportive. It's an incredibly supportive community. They like to buy local. But that being said, not everything you do has to be local. However, Prince George has been very, very supportive and very good for my business.
Yeah, I don't think that we would be as successful if we were in a bigger city. Bailey and I made the decision many, many, many years ago to move back to Prince George, and it was probably the best decision that we've made. And, family members and stuff like that, they always look at you like, what are you doing? My parents just actually recently moved back here from being in Seychelles for 25 years. And it's just to be closer together. And
in college, remember your dad the other day just said, and we've missed 25 years of this. Imagine if we hadn't moved away, we could have had all these memories for these years.
That's so beautiful.
I know.
Right? When they moved away, they were thinking, no more winter, no more snow. They were so happy to go. And now that they've come back, they're like, we should have never left. Aww. We could have had Sunday dinners as a family every Sunday. So it's really nice to have them back here.
Yeah, and honestly, they've plugged right back into their old church, back in with their old friends, and they're loving life in Prince George again. So
they've actually said that it's been way more welcoming here than it ever was in Seychelles. They felt like they've never been gone for the 25 years. So that's a big credit to Prince George.
That is.
Yeah, and everybody's always scared of the winter and things like that, but
as they should be.
What, Cherie? You don't like the winters here?
It's minus 27.
Currently, as we're recording this, it's minus 27 out, and I have to take one for the team today, and I have to drive out to a rural location and put up a sign.
Wow.
27. Yeah, I know. Feel bad for me. Anyways, so talking about the living wage of Prince George, and just to sort of explain a living wage, it is what two people have to make combined to basically live, this is how it's put. The living wage is the hourly wage that two parents working full-time need to earn to support a family of four. That's a much better way to put it than me trying to ramble on there. So in Prince George, it is currently $21.19. However, in 2018, it was only $16.51.
Wow.
How are you, I know, right? How are you finding this with your clients, Crystal?
You know, living wages is always, it's an interesting subject, I find, because it's, you know, there's this huge disparity, this gap between living wage and minimum wage. However, you know, it's, for lack of another term, it's like the chicken and the egg syndrome, because we, you know, they're encouraging people to become living wage employers. So people become living wage employers and, you know, must pay all of their staff at minimum this living wage. However, with small business, of course, when the wages increase, so does their prices. So their prices increase, and you know, 90% of our, and 90% is a number I'm just stating, it is not an actual statistic, but say 90% of our workforce comes from small business. Then small businesses raise their prices because they're now paying living wages, which means that the living wage needs to increase because the prices of things have increased, right? So,
yeah,
you know,
it's a spiral. Like it
and
just
as a
feeds on
spiral,
itself.
and you know, you know, I was talking with my partner today, and you know, and he said, well, you know, statistically they say that, or not statistically, but they stated that if they actually lowered business and personal taxes, that the economy, it would stimulate the economy, which is what Alberta did, right? Because people will be forced to invest more, or not forced, but they're encouraged. They have more spending money, so they spend it more inside their local economy, which then lowers the living wage rate and so on and so forth. But you know, that's not going to happen. So I don't know how I feel about the living wage. I know that, you know, our staff all make at least a living wage, but it's really difficult, I guess. Maybe going back to community living, I'm not sure. You know, I also believe that people's spending habits have changed because, you know, Colin, you and I are around the same age, so we remember. And
very young, by the way.
Very young, right?
Very young.
But you know, so
Very
anybody who's listening to this will remember, you know, that's you know, over 40 will remember, or maybe over 50. But remember the days when we didn't use a debit card. We had a bank card to withdraw money and to deposit money, but you didn't use it to purchase things because that wasn't, early on, that wasn't what we did. And we all had, you went to the bank, you opened a bank account when you were 19, and you were issued your first checking account, and you got your checks, and you got your check register. Whenever you made a purchase, you either used cash that you withdrew or you wrote a check, to which you logged everything in your little check register, and you kept track of what you had. So now people, their spending habits have changed as a result of using whatever their bank card will allow them to purchase. And they don't keep track of it, right? So they don't write down that they made a purchase at Starbucks or Shoppers Drug Mart, or they bought something on Amazon. They don't keep track of that in a little book, because who has time for that nowadays, right? And
plus, you can go online and see it all in your transactions.
You can, but you don't really. You don't go on and
you
track.
don't. No one wants evidence of that.
No, and they don't go on and say, okay, I'm going to allocate this to my, you know, to my entertainment envelope, because back in, you know, way long ago, they used the envelope system where this was our food money, our mortgage money, right? And they put the cash in there, but nobody does that, and that knowledge wasn't really enforced down the line. So that has changed people's spending habits, which I believe also, in my opinion, has an effect on the living wage.
I remember getting my first bank card, and you know, I was somewhat fearful because I'm not a detail person. I have a wife that's a detail person. She'll agree with me. And, I won't keep track of stuff. And I was worried that I would just spend. And that, honestly, we didn't even have Interact. You remember that, Crystal?
Yes.
Like, we would go to the machine, take the cash out, and walk over and spend the cash. Then along came Interact. Then along came Tap.
Yes.
And it just makes it a little bit too easy to spend money. And like you said, and that's really good advice that you gave, about the envelopes. This is how much you can spend here. This is how much. And I've seen several people suggest, doing that still, even though we're living in a world where we don't use cash anymore. Having, an envelope system. Now, go ahead, Bailey.
So something I wanted to bring up, which is very interesting, because I saw in the news the other day, the living wage in Metro Vancouver is $24.08. So only a $3 difference between here and Vancouver. I have a very hard time with that. Because, so they're saying Metro Vancouver, so that's like, not the suburbs. How do you afford on that to live? How do you even afford to pay rent? Especially if you have children. Because they base it off of a family of four, Colin?
Yes.
Yeah, so how would you pay for daycare plus rent, plus groceries, with $3 more than here in Prince George?
I can't, and maybe that's a real reason why in our business at One Oak, we've seen an incredible amount of people over the last 2 years moving up here from the Lower Mainland, because you can't. How can you at $24 an hour live in Vancouver?
When I, did a little bit of research on how is the living wage calculated, they take a look at factors such as access to services. So if access to services, you have greater access to more services, that balances out with lower cost of housing is more or less the things that they looked at. So I think it's, an average. But moving to Prince George is a great plan for people. We love new people here.
We do. We are a friendly bunch, not just us, just everybody in Prince George.
We are.
On the housing front, I did a little research beforehand, and I put in a calculator. Basically, $21 an hour basically gets you about 40,000, for 40,500 per year. And with a $10,000 deposit, or down payment, I should say, you can only afford about $160,000.
Which is basically not much besides a mobile home now in this market, or even a condo and apartment. I don't think you could even fully own, because then you have strata on top of that too.
Yeah. Well, I looked at that as well. With our average house price right now, in what are we, December 1st of 2022, average house price is hovering around $480,000. And I did a little search on the MLS this morning. There's only 32 places listed under $160,000. Most of them are mobiles in parks.
Yeah.
So.
And then you have your pad rent, so affordability really isn't even there. Yeah.
So if you're looking at $400 or $500 in pad rent, that gets that gets a little scary, and how can you fit a family of four into mobile?
Well, do you think that's why this reason we had the strata rules change? So basically now their rentals can be allowed in any strata building. There's no more restrictions, because I think it's our BC government trying to find housing for people because they can't afford to buy, and there wasn't enough rentals, so now they're opening up that market.
Mm-hmm. I think David Eby actually said that at this point, the renters take priority because there isn't enough housing for them, and that's why they opened it up. Now, the alternative to it is that that's where a lot of young people start. That's where I started. I started with a condo, and that is almost getting taken away from those younger people, because now investors are going to be looking at those, and putting in a bid. So it could be good, it could be bad. We'll see how it all boils down in the end.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I feel like you see like
the last couple of... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jess.
no, you're good.
All right, we're talking over each other. I was just saying over the last couple of years, and I was on CBC talking about affordability and whatnot, and people talking about investors, and it's the investors that are increasing the house price because, the investors are buying stuff up and making it unaffordable, and they shouldn't be allowed to buy rental properties. But I really think that, one should not be messing with a free and open market. And that's just my own personal opinion, right?
But people have this idea that it's these mom and pop investors who are, pretty much taking away the market from everyone else. But it isn't. Those mom and pops, they are usually, I think, pretty good, especially here. I need to clarify this. There are some investors, I have gone into the houses and I'm like, you should be ashamed of yourself letting someone live in this condition. But they don't tend to be local investors. It's outsider investors who are coming here and they see that the market is good, it's pretty consistent, and they're investing here. A lot of the time, they'd never even come here and look at the house. They have no idea anything about that house. And they don't put any money into it, which, in my opinion, if you're going to be an investor, you need to put money into that house. And Crystal, you can even say as an accountant, it's a good thing for an investor to put money into the house because then they have tax write-offs. So, it doesn't really make sense that they just throw money at a house to buy it and then just let it rot. But I don't find that that's what we have when we have local small mom and pop investors. Colin and Bailey are those mom and pop investors. They don't let their houses deteriorate because they know that there's value there. So, that's my 2 cents.
We stay on top of everything.
Yeah.
Well, we actually make them better than what they were. Because we've had neighbors before, and they're concerned it's going to be a rental. And then they see what we do, and they're like, okay, because once you upkeep those houses or do renovations, you get a person that is a better clientele for you, and they will maintain that house and take care of it. And that's what everybody should be driving for, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not the same view that people have with a rental.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a lot of clients that have rental properties, and they all do the work to, maintain the house, upkeep it, even improve it, because they know spending that money and having a good renter goes a lot further than not spending the money and having bad renters.
Very true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Preach. That's why we keep up on it, is because we attract a better renter. And you know what? A better renter takes care of the property.
Yes.
And you have less headaches as a landlord. I wanted to flip back a little bit off of this topic and about, what do we do? What do we do about, and how do we fix it? And I know nobody here has the, silver bullet that we're looking for. But Crystal, you talked about lowering personal taxes, then they go and spend in their local economies. But that just does not seem like that is the thing to do, and people are looking to government to solve their problems, And government these days, the ones that we have in, and, I'll always tell you my own view. But it's my view, and I could be wrong. But taxing a populace, to me, is not the way to get people out of the problems that they're in.
Subsidizing the cost of goods, is an alternative to changing the taxes, because when I look at simply just my small business and my area of business, when I started my business 12 years ago, a case of paper, I paid $21.99 for. for a case of paper, which is, 5,000 sheets of paper. I now, if I buy it in bulk, pay $59.99 for that same case of paper. Ooh. And last year, 1 year ago, I paid $39.99. So, it naturally increased with inflation, Holy. But over the past year, the price has increased. And so for us to, and there's even been times where there was no paper in, say, for example, Staples, right? So we had to go to another source. And, given the volume of paper we go through, that's just one small example. We don't deal with a lot of materials in our business, but other businesses deal with goods and supplies. And when the cost of those increase, their prices have to increase. Or they have no choice, because most small businesses that I am aware of aren't, making millions of dollars in profit. They're investing back into the economy. They're employing the people who live here. They're buying the goods to support their business, from local sources. So, it's important to support local. But if the local has to improve up the living wage, then their prices have to increase, which could deter people from continuing to spend locally. So I don't know what's right answer is.
Yeah. Like you said, though, lots of people are like, oh, increase the minimum wage, increase the minimum wage. Minimum wage should equal what the living wage is. But people don't think it through, I don't think, because when you increase the minimum wage, all that gets passed on to the end consumer, because businesses cost, and coming from a restauranting background, labor is our number one thing. Cost of food's up there as well. But labor is a huge, huge cost. And when you increase it like that, all it does is it makes that hamburger that you're buying there that much more.
Yes, and in addition to that, the price of things, like our prices have had to increase, not just because of minimum wage goes up. So we don't close the gap, because now when minimum wage has gone up, our staff also get a wage increase because of that.
Yep.
So because we don't need the gap to close, that's not our goal. And now we have another statutory holiday that needs to be paid for. Now we have 5 sick days that must be paid for. All of those, are costs that we can't recover. So therefore, our prices must increase because of those wages that, are not getting. Those wages are being paid without work being done. So it increases everything,
Yeah. I always thought in my mind, the way that it should be done is that the government should make it easy for everybody to open a business, start their own business. Keep that easy, keep that segment low. And then that forces us to hire people, because hopefully we're successful, forces us to hire people. We have less employment. And when that happens, or less unemployment, I should say, more employment. And when that happens, we start as business owners fighting over the people that are there that we want to attract to work with us. And that forces us to pay more money.
But don't you find that that's already where we are? I think unemployment in BC is at 3.7, which is very low.
Yep.
And you talk to any business owner or manager, and they are like, we don't have any employees. We don't have the right qualification for our employees, and all of these things, and it does force them to pay a little bit more.
Absolutely, absolutely. But also the government in the last little while has added more onto us, as more in the way of taxes onto us as well, that make it much more difficult. But yes, And this is a really good question, and I've asked Bailey this many times. Over the last 2 years, where has everybody gone?
You know, and I actually was thinking about this earlier today, I think. So how many more people are on TikTok, becoming TikTok famous? They're on YouTube. By the way, we're on all of those.
Yes, nice shameless plug there. Yeah, follow One Oak.
But how many people are getting out of the 9-to-5 rat race and they're going to, doing makeup tutorials, doing video game walkthroughs, unpackaging toys? Like, that's huge for kids now. Like, you think about the amount of people who have gone into that didn't exist previously.
Yeah.
That's still such a small percentage, though, that actually make money doing that. Like, yes, you can do it, but who makes money to live off of that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of people that have just disappeared. Do you know what I mean?
I think a lot of them are
going to work.
Yeah, they're not making living wage, I don't think. A lot of them.
No.
I was actually recently quite upset when I got the email that we were all getting $100 off our hydro bills.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want the $100 off. I would just like to pay less taxes at the end of the year. Because how much did that cost the government for everybody to get $100 off their hydro? Right? Yeah. And who ends up paying it?
Yeah. Who is paying for the labor to process that?
Well, who's paying the $100 that the government gave? It's not free money. So where does it come from? Taxes that we all pay?
Yeah.
Like, where does the money come from? Hydro decide to take that much of a price cut.
Government doesn't have their own money. Government's money comes from all of us.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that.
I typically think the end of the day is $100 in the whole year off your hydro bill really going to make that big of a difference of you affording it or not affording it. But what is that bill at the end of the year that $100 of every BC citizen got $100 off? So we own multiple properties. Every property got $100 off. It's not just one person. Every property that you have an account with at Hydro.
Yeah.
An individual, but not businesses, right?
No, individual. As long as it's registered, but like we have on our rental properties, I've got them on all of our invoices so far. We all got $100 off.
Yeah.
Yeah. These handouts are never free. And like you said, I would just rather have a decrease in taxes. And like Crystal said, then you can go and freely spend that money within our own economy.
Mm-hmm.
There is one other thing about the living wage. I don't know if anyone read up on this, but that does not include saving for your future.
Or any debt repayment, anything like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Debt
Lots of
repayment.
student loans out there.
Yeah, and when I calculated the mortgage based on a $40,000 annual income, I put in there that there was no debt either. So most everybody has debt of some kind. So that erodes that $160,000 that you can afford even more if you have debt.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a sticky situation that we see ourselves in, and it will definitely be interesting. As everybody knows, the federal government has been trying their best to stave off inflation. It looks like it's sort of maybe kind of coming around a little bit, but all it does is it just makes everything else in our lives a little bit more expensive. And for everybody that is listening, I truly hope that you have the best that you possibly can do. And we're certainly, feel for our community. And I do believe that Prince George is really resilient, and we will get through this, and we'll come out the other side all that much better. Now, thank you very much, Crystal, for being on here and bringing some light to this living wage. We greatly appreciate it. If somebody listening wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way?
That's another difficult answer. But they can just They're likely not going to get a hold of me, but they can get a hold of my office. Our website, flagshippg.ca, or 250-596-9100, and talk to any one of my staff.
Yeah. It's always hard to remember your own phone number, isn't it?
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And you did say, you're related to Jess. So,
yes.
And that's really awesome. So we really, really greatly appreciate this, and all the best. And before we go, anybody else have anything?
Good.
Stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm out there, people.
Stay inside.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Take care, and thanks for listening. And if anybody listening is looking to buy or sell real estate in Prince George, please give us a shout and go to our website, oneoakgroup.ca. We'll be happy to help you. Take care.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.